Greetings viewers and welcome to today's info sharing session. We will be covering the report customizations within SageMaker Revolution. Now, within SageMaker Revolution, we have a number of reports that are available in order for you to extract information from within your database. However, we also have the ability to go customize your reports and document layouts to suit your requirements. So this enables you to go, for example, add additional fields, etc., add logos and other information onto your report layouts, as well as your documentation. So in order for us to customize our documents, we need to access the document itself or report, and then go to our report writer. So today we're going to be just customizing an invoice layout. So if I go to my inventory transactions invoice, and upon opening up the invoice, I'm going to go to print options invoice. I can obviously specify which document I want to customize. And I'll go to layout options. Now what you see there is got a whole range of documents or document layouts in blue. And these are the standard inventory or evolution documents which are generated when the program is installed. These documents cannot be customized. They would need to be copied and then customized on the copy layout. So as you can see, if I highlight any of the blue documents, the design layout option is not accessible. So I'm simply going to go and highlight the invoice layout I wish to copy and say copy layout. And I'm going to say, give it a name. And there we go. So now once I've done that, I'm now in the actual report or customization form, and I can now proceed with my customization. So we have a whole range of options that can be added onto documents. And on the top of the screen, I've got a list or a row of icons there which are going to add certain features onto our layout. So the first thing we can add is something called a label. A label is simply a text field that I can add, place into my document and insert text information. So the label is represented by the capital A symbol. So it's a case of selecting the label and then placing it where I want to appear on the actual layout. So as you can see, I've now got a label number, and in the top left-hand corner of the screen, that same label number appears. So I'm simply going to select the top label option, and here I can certainly, for example, go and add my information. So for example, I can say, for example, right, I can add the details there, and I can obviously space this information or the label and position it where I want it to appear. And I've also got the ability, for example, to change the font size, the font itself, make it bold, underline, etc. And I can also use various colors to display my information on the layout. So use that option and I'm good to go. So you can add as many labels as you like, simply place them on the layout and then go and add your information as required. Right, so next we have the option to insert something called a system variable. And that's represented by that icon. It's called a system variable. And I can then go add that onto my layout. There we go. And on the system variables, on the top left-hand corner, I've got a drop down where I can specify what type of variable I intend adding onto my layout. So for example, I can use the date, I can use date and time, the document name, page count, etc. I can specify the time. To say, for example, I can use the date option, change the format of the layout there, and I can then go place it somewhere onto my layout and go and customize that information. Just make that right, and then we're good to go. Right, so as you can see, system variable allows me to add certain information about the system, page numbers, dates, times, etc. Right, then we have the ability to add images, which are quite useful. For example, you may want to add your company logo onto your document layout. It's quite a simple process. So on the top, I've got the option to insert a variable. So go to that image field or image icon and simply go select it and go specify where you want the image to appear on your layout. Right, there we go. And size that up. Got my image number. And I'm simply going to go right click, which will then allow me to go browse for my image. So right click on the image block and just go for the picture option. There we go. And now I can simply go and browse for wherever my logo or my picture has been stored. Let's just go there. Right, there we go. That's what we want. And I've got my layout there. Okay. Just size it, etc. And there we go. You know, obviously you would need to, in this, maybe you would need to perhaps just maybe resize your logo depending on the size and if it's what type of logo it is. But as I say, you can obviously just go and resize it and place it where you want it to appear on the actual layout. Right, simple as that. Right. Right, then we also have the ability to insert shapes. So on the top, once again, go to the shapes field and drag it onto the layout. And then on the drop down, simply go specify exactly what shape you want to add. For example, there we go. And you can then go place that onto the layout. Okay. You can also add things like, for example, lines. If you want to add maybe lines onto layouts, obviously specify where you want it to appear, etc. Add those lines as required. Right, and then we've got things like, for example, a checkbox. If you want to maybe add a checkbox, we've got that field available. So once again, checkbox, added option over there, checkbox and mark, check mark only, etc. So as you can see, add your details there as required. So it's firstly a case of going to go add the icon onto the layout, and then after that specify how you want it to display. Just make that X in a box. There we go. Right, then we've got the ability to add something like a table grid. So if you want to have a look at, let's just go find the table grid there. There we go. Let's go move that a bit. Table grid, add those details there. And if you wanted to pair the table, you've got the information there. And then obviously with the ability to, for example, move fields around, etc. Okay, so one of the common requests when customizing a layout is to, for example, add your company banking details onto the layout. So we're going to be doing that, and it's really quite a simple process. But first, I'm going to save my layout, and I'm going to come back to it later. Now, with regards to the banking details, your banking details are stored in the common, and then once you go in there, you go to company details, and there's a bank option there. So as you can see, I've entered my current banking details, and then this information is then going to display on my layout once I've done the relevant customization. So add your banking details there and the company details. Right, then it's going to be back to inventory transactions. I'm going to revert to my layout that I'm currently customizing. Print options invoice. Right, and I'm just going to go highlight the one that I'm currently customizing. Right, so you normally want, for example, maybe your layout or your banking details to appear on the footer of the document. So on the bottom of the screen, you can see there's a couple of tabs here, and they just represent the various locations on the document layout. So I'm going to say, for example, maybe in the invoice subtotals area. I want to add it somewhere over there. Let's just go make it, create some space for our layout and bring it down some more. And I'm just going to add the document details, the banking details somewhere in this location. Now, firstly, I'm going to use something called, we know the label, and I'm just going to specify that these are the banking details. Right, make that a bit bolder, and we're good to go. Right, and then now what I'm going to be doing is we're going to add something which is used very often with customizing. It's something called a DB text field. Now, a DB text is simply a database field, which I'm going to go search for and then add that information onto my layout. So in order to do that, I'm now going to, for example, take a DB text and I'm going to add that onto the layout. So as you can see, it gives it a DB text with a number, and I've got the details there. Now, I simply now need to go specify where in the database is this information that I'm looking for. So once again, the top left-hand corner, I've got a couple of pipelines, and on the drop down, we know that the banking details come from the company details. So simply go specify company details, and from there, I can then specify or find the relevant field which is stored within my banking details. So for example, I can say bank name, there we go, and I can then go add a second line label. There we go, and I'm now going to add, for example, the account number. There we go, and another useful option would maybe be the branch code. So once again, another label, company details, and I've got the branch code. Right, there we go. Right, so I need to perhaps just align this slightly so that I've got everything in its required place. And there we go, we're good to go. So as you can see, a label being the heading, and then these three fields being data or DB text fields, which are being pulled from relevant pipelines within my database. Right, so as you can see, I can obviously change the font size, a couple of options there that I can make use of. So let's just go and save this information. So that's the footer section of the layout. And I'm just going to go into the main section which we've customized. There are my details. And what you can also do is, if required, for example, move fields around, just simply highlight them and use a drag and drop action to move those fields around as required, etc. So let's just go and save this layout. Save, close. And as you can see, my new customized form appears there. Very importantly, I just need to go and tick that particular form to ensure that when printing the document that it does pick up that or the customized layout. So new layout has been selected and we're good to go. Let's just go and create an invoice. Right, so process the document and just go print the document. Right, there we go. So as you can see, I've got my system variable displaying. I've got my checkbox. I've got my line that I've added, my shape, my table grid. There's my logo, and I've added, for example, my label there, And at the bottom, I've got my banking details displayed. So obviously, it's a case of perhaps just making relevant changes, moving the fields around, etc. And just ensuring that you do specify the correct layout before printing the document. I'm just going to go back into our layout options, and I've got the details there. And then, as I say, it's once again a case of coming in, checking the information, moving the fields around, adding the relevant fields, etc., database fields, etc., saving the changes, and you're good to go. Now, what's important is that you may want to, for example, very importantly, make a backup of your layouts. So there's a couple of ways. Remember is that the document layouts and forms are stored within the Evolution Common Database. So it's very important that you make a copy of or backup, very important to make a backup of your Evolution Common Database, so that if you need to restore, you will have those forms, those layouts available. However, what you certainly can do is you are able to, for example, export the layouts. So I can, for example, highlight the relevant layout, export the layout, and I can, for example, just, for example, give it a name or file name, export name, and I can then save it in a specific location. Okay. So the important thing to remember is that if I'm going to be exporting a layout, it does export it in a .rtm format. So as you can see, there's a layout that's been exported. And once again, if need be, I can always have the ability to import the layout again. So I can say, for example, import the layout. Let's just go find the layout. There we go. And if need be, I can just go and okay. I'm just trying to, okay, there we go. It's an RTM. And okay, here's the name for the layout, and there we go. So as you can see, it's been imported successfully, and there's my information. So as you can see, I've got the ability to import layouts into my database, provided that they are in a .rtm format, and I can also export the layouts if I need to, in order perhaps to make a backup of them that I can obviously import at a later stage. So very importantly, as I say, to make a backup of your common database, as that's where the layouts are being stored, and you are able to also export the layouts if need be, and then import them as required. Now, I'm just going to, once you've done that, I'm just going to go, that's obviously just the customization of your documents. However, we also have the ability to go customize all our reports. So for example, if I go to my customers reports, let's just go find a report there, for example, an age analysis for my customers. So once again, same process, going to my layout options, make a copy of the existing layout. And then once again, you've got the details with the relevant information, and we can then obviously go and add, for example, DB text fields, etc. And I can then just go browse the location, and then from the drop down, go and find the field I want to add on the layout. And once I've completed that, it's a case of saving the layout and always ensuring that you then specify the new layout so that when printing or processing the document or the report, that it's going to obviously pick up the relevant customizations when printing. So as you can see, the report writer is a very powerful tool that allows you to fully customize reports, document layouts, etc. And you can then obviously show relevant information and add those details onto reports as required. Right, thank you so much for watching the info snippet today. It's over and out for me, and goodbye.